now. Right, it's going live on YouTube, and we're streaming live on YouTube, and I'm broadcasting now. Okay, so I'm also going to shut down YouTube because I don't want it to talk. So should we just wait a little bit more to see if we've got some more attendees before we start? So, good afternoon, everybody. We have our audience with us, and today we're so happy to present to you our Fashion Futures Open Day. So, if our audience, well, I presume you actually know, is that Africa Fashion Week London, Henley Business School, and Parsons School of Design and Technology, especially the Design and Technology program, have joined forces to produce and deliver a 6-day course. And this course is vitally important to our designers and entrepreneurs, especially those who are interested in the African markets and, you know, African designers, African entrepreneurs, to deliver this course. And so here we are, and we're going to go straight to one of our fantastic tutors, Adeyinka Adewale from Henley Business School, the Center of Entrepreneurship. And if he could tell us a little bit about what to expect from our 6-day course.
Morning, everyone, or good afternoon. It's afternoon already. It's good to connect with you all, and it's great to know that you're all on here. I'm going to share my screen with you in a minute. But before I do that, I'd just like to acknowledge that, you know, everyone coming on this program this morning or this afternoon to listen to us and to hear what we have to say tells me a lot about the commitment and the dedication everyone has towards shaping themselves and preparing themselves for the future. And we really hope that we can contribute to that adventure and to that journey. So I'm going to share my screen with you now, and then I'm going to start off my presentation. I'm going to just talk to you, very briefly about a few thoughts that I think will be pertinent and to kind of set us up nicely for the conversation that will follow. So there we go. Good stuff. So welcome to Fashion Futures. And I just wanted to begin today's conversation by asking a question. Is the future here yet? Sometime in 2018, at the Henley Center for Leadership, which is another research center we have at the Henley Business School, a few colleagues of mine set out to understand, for instance, what work would look like in 2028. And they came up with this nice looking report and had, 4 major societal trends and how those will impact organizations, work, and also leadership. And then came up with some predictions, bold predictions about what work would look like in 2028. But guess what, guys? As of January, February, March 2020, 95% of everything that report predicted has already come to pass. And that because there was one seismic shift in our polity that changed everything and seemed to bring the future closer to us more than we could ever realize. And that's why I'm really posing this question. That is the future here yet? And what that therefore speaks to is the fact that there is now an urgent need more than ever before as entrepreneurs, as people who are looking to build thriving, sustainable businesses, to keep our eyes on the future, because the future, in quote, may actually be creeping on us as quickly or sooner than we expected. I just wanted to, continue by sharing with you this quote I found from the McKinsey State of the Fashion report that got released a few months back. And it's clear, and it says that fashion players are under immense pressure to be digital first, of course, and to fully leverage new technologies. to improve diversity across their assortments and organizations, and to address growing demand for the industry to face the sustainability agenda head on. And what I see from this quote is that every player in the fashion industry needs to start to take two things seriously, which I've put into what I call the futures equation. So when you look at the fashion futures module, what we want to really cover with you are these two big blocks: technology and sustainability. And I believe very strongly that now is the time to show agility, and by positioning to build resilience, because the future is upon us. In terms of technology, there are loads of things that we can unpack there. And I'll be handing over to my colleague, Christopher, soonest, to just talk us through the technology side of things. But there's also the sustainability element of it, and how all of these shape and affect the way we build our businesses moving forward. In fact, I believe very strongly that with Africa, for instance, as a continent, there's such a huge wave of transformation that is going on the continent about the way people consume fashion products or consume products and services in general. And all of that means, therefore, that the way we create value and deliver value is radically also changing. And therefore, the need for everyone who is doing business on the continent, or indeed globally, because this is not just about Africa, but also across the globe. There's a lot of waves going on across the globe. There's a need for us to rethink value delivery. And that was really what that McKinsey report was trying to challenge or say to submit, when it says that the time has come for fashion players to be clearer about how they leverage technology and also address sustainability issues. Now, I put to you this, little diagram that speaks to 8 different themes of responsible fashion. Now, I mean, I could, on the module, I'll go a lot in depth into that conversation, because like I always believe, when you talk about ethical fashion or responsible fashion or sustainable fashion, if you look at the concept of sustainability, which was proposed by Elkington in 1994, he says there are 3 elements: people, planet, profit. We know those 3 elements of it. But in terms of how these 3 elements play out in practical terms in different industries, could be wide, could be very different. In the fashion industry, for example, we have these 2 big blocks. I say that responsible fashion or sustainability or sustainable fashion is in 2 blocks. You've got to think about the production side of things and the consumption side of things. And in looking at the production side of things and the consumption side of things, you should be looking at 8 of these different measures. The fact that you're incurring less waste, which speaks to the element of upcycling, for example. You have less impact negatively on the environment, for example. You have a lot more shared value, which in that sense, meaning we're taking a broader ecosystems approach, whereby as a fashion entrepreneur, you're not closing your eye to the fact that you're using maybe cheap labor, in quote, from artisans who are in some part of your country or some other country of the world, and therefore you don't even want to care about those people, but rather we think a little bit more holistically, because by developing the artisans, for example, we're also developing the industry as a whole. And that also speaks or links very nicely to the idea of a responsible value chain, fair trade, and so on and so forth. So there are loads of very interesting things to bring up here in terms of responsible fashion and how all of that ties into sustainability. The value chain element of it is something I'm particularly very keen on in the African context, for example, because many of you may be aware that there are many issues around sweatshops, for example, whereby people are put under very terrible conditions to work for cheap, and then big time labels are making tons of money out of those people. Now, how can we work to make sure that we do not turn blind eye to the people who are actually making our businesses happen or thrive? So there's so many interesting ethical issues to unpack, but these are some of the things I'm hoping that we'll be looking at, and how businesses or entrepreneurs can start to embed some of these key fundamental values into their businesses, and what that will look like in the context of their businesses as a whole. I'm just going to wrap up with a few quick trends. This is the African narrative. Okay, just thought I'd just share a few trends about the African narrative that I think is particularly exciting for the fashion industry and indeed the wider creative and cultural industry. The first thing to note is that from a technology point of view, there's now about 122 million active users of mobile financial services on the continent. That's a heavy number. That's huge for numbers in that sense. So meaning that a lot more people are accessing mobile financial services more than ever before. So the way you capture your value as an entrepreneur is given a sudden boost by this start. But how are you positioning to capture or to leverage this immense value that the continent is building? Generally, we say that the stats are suggesting that there's about $4.2 billion that is generated by the creative and cultural industries in Africa. You know, the amazing thing is that this is a shadow of the potential that is embedded within the creative and cultural industries. Now, in the creative and cultural industries, we have about 11 to 13 different industries. And I believe that we have a fair representation across the spectrum of these different industries on this call today. And so without wasting time, all I'm saying is that 4.2 billion seems impressive, but it's not good enough because we have a lot more value to unlock on the continent and indeed across the globe. We have about 250 million smartphones on the continent, and approximately about 40% of Africans can now access the internet. And that's a big deal. I remember looking at the stats for a country like Nigeria that says that the internet penetration in the country is now probably about 61%, meaning about 120 million people now have access to internet on their phones. And that means that, you know, the way consumption happens and the way people engage with products and services is taking a different turn. Now, in Africa, we acknowledge that there are still infrastructural challenges and there's still many issues at hand. But what I see happening here is that there's a silent revolution going on across the continent of Africa, as it is indeed going on, and it is coming in different waves. Time will not permit me on this call to talk about the waves I believe are currently going on in terms of revolution. But what I see happening is that smart businesses and smart entrepreneurs will start to read the waves and start to position to capitalize on the potential that is coming in the nearest future. We know that Africa, for instance, private consumption will be valued at about $2.1 trillion, meaning people will spend about this much on the consumption of different goods and services. Where does that leave us, you know, as fashion entrepreneurs? And every time I see a figure like this, I always just say to myself, can we have a slice of that pie? What industry is going to have the biggest slice of that pie? Can I also just say at this point that, you know, we know that a lot of African countries have been oil dependent or natural resource dependent. And there's a huge wave it's huge narrative around diversifying the economy. And I believe very strongly that the creative and cultural industries will be the first point of call, one of the first points of call when we're looking to really diversify and open up African economies as a whole, because there's so much untapped potential in there. We have about 600K jobs being created. And of course, we have a lot of tech hubs, you know, kind of springing up on the continent. So the real question that I'm putting forward to you this afternoon is, how comfortable are you with disruption? So at this point, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Christopher, and I'll control the slides for him, and he's just going to talk us through his points from here. Christopher?
Yes, welcome everyone. Very excited to be working with all of you in the near future, and we, as Adeyinka introduced, the broader issues that I think the fashion industry is facing and needs to take on as challenges. I'm going to be introducing more issues related to the actual technology, including the wearable technology, interactive fashion, big data. You want to switch to the next slide? Okay. So we'll be concentrating on wearable technology. Parsons School of Design and Technology program, we've been experimenting for 25 years almost. It's been since the program started in all types of interactive media, interface design, that knowledge to the fashion context, and we want to explore with you your ideas and new trends in this area. Next slide. A little bit of delay. So, you know, one of the interesting aspects of wearable technology is that it can also benefit other people besides pure fashion driven uses. For example, with people that have disabilities and people that need to be given other extended senses that they may not have, with blind or deaf or dumb. So this idea audience and market is also part of it, while all clothing will have sensors and be able to communicate as part of an ecosystem. Okay, next slide. So, and then we're looking at interactive fashion, and just keep going ahead, Adeyinka, it's okay. And the interactive fashion will be concentrating on how to incorporate different strategies in terms of how consumers will interact with the products, whether customization, and how the supply chain can in real time adjust to consumer behavior. Okay, next. And big data analytics. So of course, how do we look at the fact that big data will be collected globally and will be influencing predicting the trends, will be able to reduce the waste of materials and provide insights into fashion. So we're going to explore how big data and sensors and analytics will be part of the whole design and product line concept to development. Okay, and how also artificial intelligence, and then upcycling, which is an important part that we've just been discussing in terms of sustainability. We want to look at the entire supply chain and life cycle from cradle to grave, as they say, to look at how we can use and reuse and create customization along every aspect of the fashion process. Okay, and then last, we would like to talk about, well, one more slide on upcycling, which is the circular value chain. So we can look at how every aspect of the production and the development of fashion can be made more efficient and to be zero carbon and zero waste if we can. Right now, as we know, the fashion industry is the second largest polluting industry. So there's a huge responsibility to create innovation to turn that around, okay? And last is about branding and new media. So all of you that are thinking about your own brands and how your brands are positioned, we want to think about how the whole marketing, branding, and media spectrum can be supporting how your ideas will be streamed into this, massive social media and new media field, which is critical to today's success. So I'm going to turn it back to Adeyinka. This some of the key topics we'll be discussing, both in theory and in some workshops.
Yeah, thanks, Christopher. So what? So we've kind of started off by talking to you about a few frameworks to put in mind, a quick background to show you that there are some interesting trends and narratives going on. There's a huge demand or need to focus on technology and sustainability, and we are committed to helping you walk through what this will look like in the context of your specific businesses as entrepreneurs. So what do all these things mean? I believe, first of all, we believe that fashion entrepreneurs of the future must be comfortable with disruption, and there's a lot of disruption going on in this space, and it speaks to the concept of agility and being able to kind of pivot when necessary, or build or just kind of remodel your businesses to kind of move with the trends and get value created in new ways and in new forms. And that disruptive element is something that we are passionate about, and we also believe will be critical to what we will be sharing with you on this program. The second thing is that with disruption, we believe there will be many more pseudo businesses and business models, to be discovered. So there are many more interesting discoveries happening. And if you heard Christopher properly, he was saying something about how we can be innovative to deal with some of the challenges of the waste that we have in the fashion industry. Now, that in itself is a whole different kettle of fish in terms of what potential entrepreneurs could be looking at, or innovators or social innovators could be looking at. So this space is not just for core designers, as it were. This space is giving room, and technology is opening up the landscape to newer forms of businesses and newer approaches to businesses and newer forms of business models. And we want to take a holistic, ecosystem approach to dealing with this challenge, or creating or embedding this, infusing this into our conversation, because I believe that, and we believe that the entrepreneurs of the future are people who will have this big mindset, broad mindset, to kind of understand that the landscape has shifted, and that the landscape is opening up to further huge possibilities. Now, the fashion industry has already started reshaping globally. A lot is going on in that space, and we believe that Fashion Futures course is aimed actually at helping fashion entrepreneurs explore possibilities to position for the opportunities that lie ahead. And we hope to help close the chasm between where people are now and where we think they need to be as entrepreneurs. So that's it from us, and we opening to receiving your questions and getting the banter going from here. Anna Marie?
Yes, thank you, Adeyinka. That was so helpful. I just want to ask a quick question to you, actually, that maybe our audience may not know quite yet. What is it that they're expecting over these 6 days? They're expecting a virtual classroom kind of situation, and they're expecting some peer-to-peer group work, as well as some valuable time actually to speak to you guys as their tutors, and to learn thoroughly. But can you maybe give us a little bit more of what our students will be expecting over the 6 days? Because I know there's something quite interesting with pitching and funding that you're planning to do with them as well.
Yeah. So we're going to have the theory sessions, as it were, where we're going to really unpack a lot of these concepts in fuller measure, and talk about trends and so on, and kind of give a lot more depth and a lot more robustness, as it were, to the conceptualization of these different concepts. And we're going to have those in the theory sessions or theory classes as well. Then we're also going to have the practical sessions, all of these happening online, where we hope to help embed and look at what these different concepts will look like in the context of individual entrepreneurs who are on the program, kind of see what they're seeing, where they think there can be loads of alignment, where they need to rethink things, and so on and so forth. But as part of the final deliverables for the program, we'll be hoping there'll be lots of embeddedness of working together in peer-to-peer to create and co-create projects, which we will then kind of look at. And we're going to narrow down to a couple which we think we're going to take further and hand over to potential mentors who will take them up from there, and also possibly, where necessary, hand them over to one or two coaches who might be willing to take on those projects and help walk through, maybe in a couple of sessions, to help people see their businesses go from paper to sort of like becoming a bit more solidified. So those 3 blocks will be essential to. There's a tripod really that will be sitting, that will be carrying the program in itself. So participants stand to benefit from not just loads of theory. It's going to be a lot of practical stuff, how this looks like in practice, how this looks like in individual practitioners' businesses, and of course curating projects together, which of course we encourage a lot of collaboration, which is essential, and then how that can then translate into interesting ideas and projects of the future.
That's quite amazing. It's because one of the overarching themes that we've heard a lot with our webinar programs that we've been conducting over this past month is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. So what we're proposing here is that the students, no matter where they're coming from, even if they're coming from Nigeria, we have some students from Nigeria, some students from the UK, we want them to collaborate. Absolutely. and take their ideas further.
Absolutely.
I've got a question for you, Christopher, about technology. I mean, during this time of COVID, we're seeing an amazing uptick in what creatives and designers are actually producing in this time, that they've actually got some time to work on some personal projects and things like that. And I know that there's been some viral videos from a Congolese designer called Hanifa, who was actually using technology and computer-aided design and augmented reality to produce an amazing collection virtually. So do you actually see, this could tie into sustainability and ethical fashions, but do you see technology as driving a huge part of what creatives should be expecting and what creatives should be learning about nowadays, just to be in the game. Do you agree with that? Is that something that
Absolutely, and I think building on what I just the idea of I like to call rapid prototyping is in the digital space, as you said, with digital without actually having to make things physically, we can prototype things in a digital space much faster. So we want to talk about those ideas, how we can generate a whole life cycle concept of the fashion element that doesn't have to be made in the first stage. It could all be done in a digital space so that we can conceptualize the whole life cycle of the product, as you're saying, that and VR and AR can help to visualize and communicate those concepts. So I think we definitely have to be up to speed on those aspects of the design process. And if we're not, then we're going to be left behind. It's got to be integral in the design thinking, design process, and the production as a continuous, evolutionary process.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I just want to move and tell our audience members that if they have a question that they want to put directly to Dr. Adeyinka and Christopher, to raise their hands, because I know some of you have been writing your questions, which I'm going to read them out now. But if anybody wants to actually speak to our tutors and who's got a particular question about this course, please do raise your hand and we'll come to you. But in the meantime, so let's go to some questions here. I have got one from Azza Hassan saying, will the course be able to advise emerging designers how to adopt sustainable and ethical practices while still being profitable and a successful business?
I believe so. That's part of what I, kind of mentioned to you earlier, that we will hopefully present to you this clear, dynamic of what a responsible ethical fashion business should be looking at. What are the elements to be looking at? I believe also in the idea of baby steps. At times it may not be possible to just go 100%, to a level, but it's ideal if you have a clear vision of what you want to define your ethical business to look like. And then we look at where you are right now and then see how the content we give to you help you kind of start to see how you can redesign and streamline your processes, and also look at what those means for you in terms of business implications, of course, because ultimately everyone wants to stay profitable, and we are definitely up for you making your profit in that sense. So yes, to answer your question, it's yes. So when we present to you these things, part of what we'll be doing in those practical sessions will be to help you untangle some of those theoretical knots and kind of spread them out over your businesses and practice, and we begin to interact together through the platform on what this means, what you think this means for your business, and how this can take shape in your business, and how that can recraft the identity of your business. So absolutely yes.
Oh, thank you. And I've got another question from Kamilat. At what stage does your business have to be in order to do this program? So.
Well, that's an interesting one as well, and maybe Christopher can chime in on this too. Now, I think if you have started off already, it's great. You can join in because you're already in the game. You're doing things already. You have some proven competence, and it's easier for us to just talk about your existing processes and see how you can start to think ahead on how the content we're delivering on this program could be useful towards recreating the identity of your business. If you're also at the ideation stage, this program will definitely be useful for you, can be useful for you, because what it can help you achieve is that it can help you rethink a few things differently about what you were hoping to do with your business, and that can then help you launch out on a more forward footing, as it were, along the lines of these themes, and then you can build up or scale up from there as well. So I think it's whether you're an existing business that has been in the game for a while, it's okay to join in. And if you're still at the ideation stage, but you already have some good experience of the industry and you know exactly what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to do, Yep, this is great as well, because we can then talk through what you're hoping to do with your business idea, and then see how the elements of our conversations, both from the tech side of things and the sustainability side of things, can fit into your business idea and help you build things up from there. Christopher, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I'm sorry, my internet is having a little bit of a breaking up, so hopefully you can hear me. But I do think that the exciting thing is to have people from different stages in their development, and actually, because sometimes startups in the startup mode, or even people that are just in the exploratory mode, have different ideas and skill sets that they can bring to the table to businesses that are already more established and maybe, you know, have a product line. Because this kind of creative session, we want to open it up to all different ideas. So I think if you're only plugged into your own business model, you may lose some opportunity in looking at other ideas. And likewise, the people that have us more in a starting mode can gain from the experience of those who already have business. So I think as an interactive kind of workshop environment, we want to have that type of exchange. So I think it supports all different types of students at the
I think we want to make clear that our students should have some level of experience. This is not starting out pattern cutting course. It's for students who actually have started their business and who want to take it to the next level, and want some valuable advice to do that. I've got another question here. What can an aspiring fashion stylist expect to learn from this program, please? And that's from Mobolaji. She asked that question. So that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we're not only asking for fashion designers, but we're also asking for creatives in the industry to come on board as well. Would you agree with that, Adeyinka?
Indeed, I absolutely agree with that. Like I said, when I was in my talk, when I was kind of talking about the CCIs, the creative and cultural industries, I mentioned that there are about 11 to 13 different industries in there, and under each industry, if I break them down into their value chains, you probably have tons and tons of, you know, other forms of, you know, jobs and openings in there, and with people, you know, choosing to play the niche game, sticking to one element of the value chain, to people who are on board multiple dimensions of the value chain. So I believe if you say you're an aspiring stylist, I think this program can still be great for you, because ultimately it depends on what your end game is. So what's your end game? Are you hoping to start off something in the nearest future, or what's it you really want to do? Depending on that, you know, response to that, I still think quite well, like, you know, Christopher was talking earlier about the power of technology and rapid prototyping, for example. There's so many things that could easily come to play in terms of how you rethink your role as a stylist, for example, and how technology can help you redefine that function as a stylist, and how the sustainability side of things can even give you a further edge towards playing the game at a totally different level, which could put you on a totally different pedestal and give you a unique selling point that may be few and far in between on the continent if you're based in Africa.
Oh, absolutely. That's amazing. So Mobolaji, it could be a whole different level. You know, if you join us on the program, who knows what can take you. I do have another one about low tech from VMAR. Hi, what do you think about low tech solutions to these issues? Will this be explored, or will it be more focused on high tech? So we've got a traditionalist in the house. What do we think?
I'd like to answer that one.
Go ahead,
that absolutely low tech and high tech need to be working together, and I don't think we're excluding low tech in the discussion. So, for example, in the recycling business and the upcycling, there's a lot of low tech applications that need to be incorporated into the process, and everything from sourcing materials and finding sustainable solutions. In my opinion, in many cases, low tech is actually more sustainable than high tech. But we're going to discuss the trade-offs between low tech and high tech in context of the whole idea of the value chain, and the idea that that sustainability needs to think on many different dimensions. It's not only high tech. So I think that was a very good question, and we will definitely be addressing the balance between low tech and middle tech and high tech.
And also, yeah,
yes.
Thanks for that, Christoph. I think that's a fantastic response to it. And also, from my side of things, as an entrepreneur, I always look at the element of local innovation as something that is increasingly, I'm very passionate about it, as much as I always advocate for it. So that also speaks to that element of low tech, in that sense that there's so many interesting innovations that are going on in Africa that can be unique to solving our own unique problems. And we're absolutely open to opening up the conversation and hopefully creating a platform for people to think very clearly through these different levels of technology, to see which ones best suit some of the biggest wicked problems, as I call them, that they may be facing in their businesses, or within their different sectors, or within their localities or location, and seeing how those clever innovations, regardless of whatever level they're situated at on the technology scale, will be helping them kind of pull through those challenges. For me, ultimately, I think the element of solving these major wicked problems we have on the continent is such a huge agenda, but doing that in a way that is responsible and sustainable, and creating that balance between, say, staying at the lower level of the tech chain and also going towards high tech, is a conversation that I think will be very interesting to have. So like Christopher said, so yes, I think it's a nice conversation that will definitely come up.
That's amazing. Well, I want to ask a question that we received last night, actually, by email. And I'm not sure whether the designer is with us today, but I'm going to read it out anyway. It's from Lindy Makoba. She's from South Africa, and she says, designers are not just designers. They often, in most cases, have to be event producers. I myself have an event which is meant to create awareness, promote heritage through creative arts. Funding and pitching has always been a battle for us, as people do not see the vision or take the creatives as an important economic drivers, like job creators, etc. One funder even stated, the moment you talk about fashion in your proposal, they don't even look at it because it's seen as a luxury. It's almost as if they put blinkers on. How do we change this perspective? Now, it's a long question, but it's a quite interesting one, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, she's saying that it's like she's not given any help in her location or within her government to actually be a driver for economic change amongst her environment, or even helping her peers.
Wow. That's a big question, and it's Lindiwe, right? Lindiwe, I honestly feel your pain. There are a few things that immediately jump to mind, as I kind of heard your question. First of all, is that there are and there will be bodies that will be sympathetic towards certain, to the creative industry, to players in the creative industry as a whole. So I'm aware that you've said that funding body said no to you, anything that has to do with fashion. I absolutely understand that. But I also believe that there will be funders that might be, and that's to show you that there's, so when you look at funding within the landscape, there will be funders who are absolutely open to creatives, and there may be some funders that will be more specific in terms of the type of creatives they want to support. And I understand that could be more towards maybe film, music, and some of the other creative, creatives in your space. But when it comes to fashion, there might be limited opportunities. It might not imply that there are no opportunities. Maybe that's the first thing that immediately jumps to mind. I don't know the context that you're in, but it might need a little bit more fact finding, but that's one dimension. But even if we assume that, we're having this huge challenge with having, potential funders take on board, say, fashion projects or fashion proposals, there are a few things that come to mind for me. And this is what I call checking the box within you as an entrepreneur. If you can check these boxes and you still face the challenge, then we can be sure that there's a higher level order of challenge, which may be more systemic than it is about, you not doing what you need to do in terms of 100% due diligence. There are two things that I see. Now, I've sat on many funding panels, giving out funding to potential, entrepreneurs who have come to pitch their businesses. And two things I see that often on the bit of lacking in those pitches are technical competence and strategic capacity. Those two things I see are typically missing. Now, I do not doubt in any way that these guys are great designers. Of course, for you to have knocked together a deck that looked as beautiful as the one that you probably would have brought along, it speaks volumes about the fact that you're passionate and you know your stuff. So this is not in any way an indictment to your professional competence, but there is always another side to that coin. And so when I speak to technical competence, remember, technical competence has many faces, as much as strategic capacity has many faces. So for instance, the strategic capacity, for instance, for me will be every funder has an agenda. Do you know the agenda? Because there always has to be an alignment between how you frame whatever project you're taking to them and how that project helps that funder meet their own specific interest. Oftentimes, you may need an insider to give you greater insight into what the agenda really is. Otherwise, you do not position yourself you do not present your idea in a way that could help them see that they're actually, by giving you their money, is actually going to add further value to them. So that speaks to the idea of you recognizing their interests and crafting your strategy around meeting those needs. That's a fundamental thing to do. You must learn that. And if you don't do that, you always probably most likely get rejections. The other things I was going to say was on technical competence. So for instance, the ability to kind of frame your value proposition clearly enough to align with the interest is another thing. So I call it framing. I call it the framing problem. I've seen many great ideas that were brought to platforms but were wrongly framed for those platforms because they didn't understand what the platform was requiring of them. It's a framing problem. You need to learn how to frame to stand ahead of funders. Second thing is creating a business case. Whilst many people are very sound with their craft, the business side of things is often a problem. Can you create a compelling business case for your idea? If you say you want to do, say, some event, what's your compelling business case for that event? What value will people get out of it? What value will your funders get out of it? And that has to be underpinned by a clean and convincing narrative that amplifies that the approach you're bringing on board is the best approach towards delivering that value. Another thing to think of is, I believe in the power of proven competence. If you haven't done things with little money in your space, even if you bootstrap your way through it in a way that helps you show that you're not a novice in the game, so to say, you can show us, really lovely track record of events you've run. And in addition to that, which leads to my fourth point, creating clear metrics that you can measure. Because when you're in the funding game, numbers will speak louder than words. And I'm going to say that again. In the funding game, numbers speak louder than words. So don't come describing what you want to do. Show me what's going to happen in concrete terms. And the way to show them that is to say, look, when I ran this event, 30% of attendees did this and 80% of this was achieved. And we set out against 5 criteria. We measured these 5 criteria. This was the impact we got out of it. If you join us, you'll be scaling this effort and this could potentially result into X, Y, and Z and so on and so forth. All of that goes into the element of creating a business case for yourself, in addition to demonstrating proven competence. And the last thing I was going to say is collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. One of the best ways to deal with funding related issues is to first of all look for like-minded entrepreneurs or like-minded players who can contribute to your cause, together with whom you can co-create things with clear agreements, knowing where everybody sits on that agreement scale, and then knowing that you can help each other achieve your dreams, and then if necessary, you can go your separate results. Collaboration is absolutely critical whilst you're still looking for the funding. And in addition to, I agree and I hear your sentiments very clearly that the narrative seems to be very constrained at the moment. The other thing I was then going to say to that effect is with the power of social media, you can start to change that narrative only if you have created those metrics and you can demonstrate impact. It's the impact that you sell on social media, not what you do, if that makes sense. Try hard selling less what you do, try more selling what that effect of the impact of what you're doing is to the wider society, and that will start to whip up a bit of sympathy towards your sector.
That's amazing advice. That's amazing advice. I have got another question that came on to our Instagram from a designer in Tanzania. So I think this is probably one of our last questions. She says, I'm a designer in Tanzania looking to start an online fashion school to educate rural Tanzanians who live in the area close to cotton ginnery factories so they can add value to it. We have no fashion school in Tanzania, and the country speaks Swahili. So we have to start creating fashion education in the local language. I really want Fashion Futures Open Day, but she says she really wants to come. So I'm not sure that she's in the audience, but if she is, I hope she can raise her hand. But this is something that's also quite interesting for you, Adeyinka. Tanzanian, don't speak, oh, she is. She is. She's just raised her hand. She's Tanzanian. Most of the country speaks Swahili. What can happen? What can she do? What can she do to help the rural Tanzanians in her area, which are close to cotton ginnery factories? What can she do? It's an interesting one, isn't it?
It is. What's her name?
She is Kemi. Kemi, raise your hand again.
Is it Kemi?
Kemi Kalikwe.
Okay, if it's Kemi, all right, Kemi Kalikwe. Okay, Kemi. Okay, Kemi. Right now, first thing I'm going to say to you is that, you know, I kind of say to you, do you understand your entrepreneurial identity to begin with? I think that's the starting point for me. Whenever I hear this kind of, it's a big problem you've posed, but also I see loads of opportunities in there. But before I kind of talk to you about what my own thinking is about the proposed, you know, idea of what you've presented to us this afternoon, I always start by asking the entrepreneur, do you really know your identity? Why do I ask that question? Because that will determine the entry point of the conversation. What do I mean by entrepreneurial identity? Where are you playing along the entrepreneurship scale? Are you going to be a purely for-profit organization, or are you going to be a charity organization, or do you want to be a social enterprise, which is a hybrid of both? Now, if you can answer that question, I think that the idea you have is an idea that, you know, sits quite nicely on the social entrepreneurship side of things or space. What that means is that it gives you the capacity to do two things. It gives you a dual value proposition method to doing your business. The first, of course, is that you have to have a clear social mission. You've spoken about the cotton ginneries around in the local area where you're looking at. The question to you is, what are the wicked problems that those guys are facing? And how, when you say the fashion school will be adding value, what do you mean by that? So what's the output that you really want this education, fashion education, to create in terms of value add to the cotton ginnery? Because the cotton ginnery itself is such a huge industry, and you know, you're playing along a wide spectrum of the value chain. So where on the value chain does this online fashion school sit? If you get my point. Because if you say an online fashion school, I understand the industry well enough not to help you define what that means. Because if I do that, I may be stifling the creative idea you've got. Because it may be that you want to do something along one side of the value chain that is just totally different from what I may be thinking in my mind. So you need to really define that very clearly. First of all, understand the wicked problems these people are facing. Two, understand what value that online fashion school will be contributing to solving that problem, whilst, you know, mention dual value proposition, whilst also making money. It's very important. I believe you need to stay sustainable. Now, being a social enterprise or positioning yourself as a social enterprise gives you an edge. It gives you an edge because you're not a not-for-profit organization like a charity that will be heavily dependent on government funding. You are allowed to make money. You are allowed to charge for services and products. You are, in fact, allowed to create products and services. You're allowed to forge alliances and do things that can make money for you in a way that can help you stay sustainable whilst you continue to have your social impact. Now, that's why I started by asking you, what's really your identity as an entrepreneur? Because if you don't answer that question, we really don't know the identity of this online fashion school. For me, the least of your problem is the fact that this is going to be created in Swahili. If anything at all, that's such a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing for those who are Afrocentric. It's a powerful thing for Afrofuturism. Because what you will have on one hand is that you will have to start creating materials online that will be purely in the local Swahili language, which could be a huge unique selling point for you and could ultimately also attract potential international funding. So you're sitting on a gold mine. In other words, let me just encourage you by saying that you're sitting on a gold mine. If you jump on this course, for example, you'll gain a lot more clarity around maybe elements that you can put into place that can help you, work around maybe clarifying some of the social missions that your idea will be dealing with, in addition to, like Christopher was saying earlier, elements of technology, either low tech or high tech, that could bring a lot more value into that fashion school as well. But that's where I'm going to summarize my little answer to you. But Kemi, you are on a gold mine. You need to just have a lot more clarity on the things I've raised, and then you can build it up from there.
Oh, that's fantastic advice. So you hear that, Kemi? You're sitting on a gold mine. So call us up. We'll be with you. I just want to, if there's no more questions, I just want to wrap up by reminding the audience that our course is running from the 29th of June to the 4th of July. So that's 6 days. And I do have a question here, actually, quickly from Aline. What are the daily hours? She's working full time. So have we got an idea of how many hours that we're expecting our students to be with us? I'm sure it's not 8 hours a day, but they'll be significant. Do you have an idea?
No, it's not 8 hours a day. What we're currently planning will be to have maybe 2 sessions in a day, and maybe both of them will probably be a total of about maybe 4 hours at the most at the moment. That's what we're planning to do. And given the fact that some of you are working, we might also consider a bit of some other methods of making some of these things available to those who pay to attend, or maybe constrained by their jobs to attend. So we definitely will work around things, but that's really the kind of soft plan we're having at the moment. We're really wanting to assess the kind of people we're going to have on board to then clarify how best to position that. But that's to let you know that we're very flexible to making sure that the program is tailor fit to suit your need. Yeah. That's really where I'm going to. We're very flexible enough to tailor the program to suit you.
Oh, good. That's great. Well, I hope, Aline, that's answered your question. So I just also want to remind the audience that if they want to have more information, they should go to our website, which is africafashionweeklondonuk.com/online-courses, and I've put the link in the chat room, so they can actually come and have a bit of a read on the course brochure, and also sign up. We've got limited scholarships, everybody. We've got access to some funding, so we've got some scholarships on at the moment, so please do apply, and we'll see what you're about, and hopefully award all the scholarships that we can, and get you on our course. So that would be really great for you to do that. Adeyinka and Christopher, if any final words, if not, we'll wrap up and maybe take the conversation offline. If there's any more questions anybody else has, we can do that offline as well. But if there's any final words from the pair of you.
Well, we're so excited to meet all of you, and there's so much to explore and discover and experiment with in this format that we're, as Adeyinka just said, we want to make it about what your needs are, and bring new ideas together and collaborate, and different ideas and outputs from this whole experience. So we're really excited to meet all of you online, and look forward to firming up all the details in the next couple of weeks.
Yes, indeed. I'm just super excited. I'm super excited first at the quality of questions we've received this afternoon, which speaks to the quality of minds and the interests that this is gathering, but also excited for the future of the continent, because a lot of the questions that have come fielded this afternoon have come from Africa. For me, that's super exciting, and yes. And I'm so excited that I can't wait to connect with you all and help you see those businesses have the kick that I think they can have, and begin to take the place on the continent to do great things. So we'll be very much honored to be a part of that journey with you, and to have contributed immensely to the knowledge infrastructure that helps you bring those brilliant projects to life. And can't wait. Thank you all.
No, I think you've wrapped up beautifully. Yeah, we can't wait either. And so we've just got one more question that's come through from Jill. does the course cover some of the issues with accessory designers and producers? I work with leather.
Does the course cover what? Come again?
Does the course cover some of the issues that accessory designers come across? And she, I'm presuming it's a she, works with leather.
Well, from a sustainability point of view, I think, yes, we're going to touch on a few things. You know, I'm sure you're aware that the leather industry itself has been subject to a lot of controversies in recent years about the use of certain furs or the use of ostrich leather for certain bags and so on and so forth. And also, if you're playing on the African continent, for example, there are so many, you know, gray areas to explore. So like I said, in my response, that I'm giving you the same response I'm giving to every other person that has asked similar questions pertaining to their unique businesses or unique job scope. It is this: we will theoretically present to you a plethora of ideas. The practical sessions are where we will take you in depth into those ideas and help you see how these things play out in your unique businesses. And hopefully there we can start to think through together, collectively as well in groups, on what these different ideas we're presenting look like in the scope of your businesses and how you can start to make the shifts or the amends necessary. So the answer to that, I'll say, is therefore yes. So welcome on board.
Thank you very much. It's been such a fascinating.
I add one thing about that. I'd like to just add one thing that I mean, in terms of accessories, especially with wearable technology, the accessories will be very much part of the design of, you know, all different kinds of devices, garments, and applications. So whether it's garments, accessory kinds of industrial aspects that we will want to bring in, we want to explore all of those ideas. So it's not limited to one format or type of fashion or application.
Thank you. That's amazing.
I see there's a hand up. There's a hand up. Maybe if you can take that quickly.
That's Aline. Does Aline want to say something? I know we answered one of her questions earlier. And we've got Lindiwe, the South African designer, who I read out her question earlier. She says she signed up, yay. So we'll be really looking forward to meeting you virtually.
Looking forward to meeting you, Lindiwe.
That'll be amazing. Aline, if Aline's got a question, can she quickly type it? If not, I think we'll leave it there. And as I say, if anybody else has got some questions, we can take those offline and direct them directly to our tutor.
Oh yeah. So Aline is still asking about the daily hours of the course because she's working full time. Aline, like I said earlier, we will communicate clearer to you in about a week or two what the clear measures would look like in terms of what the daily offerings will look like. And like I said earlier, for those who are working full time, we can sympathize with you, and we will make provisions for that. We'll cater for that as well. So do not worry, we've got you.
Just sign up, Aline.
We got you.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll say goodbye, and thank you so much for Christopher, and thank you so much, Dr. Adeyinka. It's been a pleasure talking to you as always. And guys, we hope that we'll see you on our course on the 29th of June, and we'll look forward to your ideas and your designs, and let's collaborate and create. Okay.
Great stuff.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks then. Take care.
Bye.
Bye then.
Bye. Take care.